Welcome back. So we're going to deviate from pure finance for a second and focus on endocrinology and pharmacology in order to better understand what GLP-1s are and why, according to multiple reputable banks like Morgan Stanley, why are these drugs alone are going to be a $100 billion industry by around 2030. We're also going to go over research that shows applications of GLP-1s beyond just weight loss and diabetes. Let's get started with some basic questions. What are GLP-1 drugs? Who are these drugs intended for? What are their indications? What are their side effects? And what are the mechanisms of action? GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like peptide 1. Originally, these drugs are used to control diabetes at low dosages. However, at higher dosages, their ability to cause weight loss through appetite suppression is amplified. In recent years, GLP-1 drugs have expanded and now often act not only on the GLP-1 receptor, but also the GIP receptor. So these drugs are intended for people with an initial body mass index or BMI of 30 or higher, or to people with a BMI of 27 or higher, and at least one weight-related health condition like type 2 diabetes, prediabetes, or high blood pressure. The first generation of GLP-1 drugs started roughly around 2005 with the exenatide or Byetta, which was a 2 times daily injection used primarily for diabetes and worked only on the GLP-1 receptor. The function of GLP-1 is to stimulate insulin secretion, which will, in effect, lower glucagon and increase the beta islet cell of Langerhans proliferation in the pancreas and decrease gastric emptying. Because food is not leaving your stomach, you're going to feel full for longer, and this can lead to some side effects, which I will get into later. Let's go into GIP briefly. So GIP stands for glucose-dependent insulinotropic polypeptide. So that is because when it was originally discovered, it was thought to be dependent on glucose and also fat to exert its effects on increasing insulin levels. The insulinotropic effect of GIP is almost lost completely in patients with type 2 diabetes. Sidebar, if you do aerobic exercise or resistance training, this naturally increases sensitivity of the body to insulin, so make sure you get your exercise in. GIP also decreases gastric acid secretion, one of which is the hormone ghrelin, responsible for increased appetite and also for craving. Now that we've laid some of the groundwork, what does this mean? How do you lose weight on these drugs? Well, basically, I hinted at it before, but the delay in gastric emptying causes you to feel full for longer. And because food is in your stomach longer, your ability to eat more is reduced. And there's also feedback on the hypothalamus, where appetite suppression occurs at the level of the CNS or brain. This is also believed to be the mechanism behind which cravings are controlled as well. So, what are the side effects of GLP-1s? The delay in gastric emptying can lead to nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. This actually causes a decrease, specifically the nausea, decreases your appetite below the threshold, however, of being too bothersome for most people most of the time. So this is almost like a beneficial side effect. Because food is stuck in the stomach for a while, you will have a light constipation, essentially a paralysis of the muscles responsible for peristalsis or gastric motility, which move food through the gut. This can be slowed down to the point of ileus in rare occasions, and you might even need nasogastric tubing in that case to reverse it. There seems to be a risk of thyroid C-cell tumors in rats, as well as pancreatitis and abdominal pain, rarely. In almost all subjects, lean mass loss will occur, and this can be up to 40% of the weight loss. Companies do have products that are to fight this, such as Nestle. It's because this directly essentially competes with their businesses. Abbott also has the Ensure lineup. The best way to combat loss in lean mass is actually just to have adequate protein intake and, of course, exercise programs, primarily resistance training. And actually, if you need help with that, we have qualified professionals here for that as well. Feel free to contact us or leave a comment. We also have to stress the importance of maintaining fat-free mass throughout the weight loss journey, because let's say you have a 60-year-old woman undergoing GLP-1 therapy. It's going to be tougher for them versus the average male or female below the age of 40 to get that muscle mass back. And even in perimenopausal women, it can be an issue if it's not done in a safe manner. Let's go some of the other potential benefits of these drugs, other than just weight loss and diabetes control. Smoking cessation. Admittedly, the evidence for this is light and is mostly anecdotal. Cardiovascular health. GLP-1s may reduce the risk of heart disease, stroke, and heart attack. For example, the FDA has approved the GLP-1 drug Wegovy to reduce the risk of cardiovascular death, stroke, and heart attack in adults with cardiovascular disease who are overweight or obese. GLP-1s may also reduce the effect of kidney disease and delay the progression of diabetes-related nephropathy, according to Novo Nordisk. So they reported in their semaglutide group a reduction in kidney disease progression and cardiovascular death of 24%. There's also some link to the treatment of neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's by reducing overactive immune reactions in the brain. There also have been studies done to look at colon cancer. By analyzing electronic health records of more than 1.2 million people who took anti-diabetic agents from 2005 to 2019, researchers compared the incidence of colorectal cancer in those compared to a group who took GLP-1s. It's important to note that a lot of these effects might be strongly related to weight loss and not necessarily the mechanism of action of the drug. Also, of course, funding sources. A lot of the funding sources from these studies is from the drug maker themselves, which is an obvious conflict of interest. There are likely more diseases that supposedly benefit from GLP-1s, but if the data is even half right, this shows the enormous TAM is not blown out of proportion. From a medical perspective, this should be met with a heavy dose of skepticism while still being encouraging in terms of the possible total number of diseases that can be treated, while still being relatively non-invasive. So now that we've laid the groundwork, what potentially separates the Lilly drug, Mounjaro or tirzepatide, and Novo's Wegovy semaglutide from this newer Viking Therapeutics drug, VK2735? Let's go over the most recent earnings call for Viking. As we all know, VK2735 is advancing to phase 3, which is ahead of expectations. We're only expecting to advance to phase 2B. Again, this shows a lot of confidence from the FDA. Management has also confirmed that a monthly dosage is possible, and dose escalation will continue for the oral formulation up to 100 milligrams. This suggests favorable tolerability. The phase 3 clinical path and guidance requires 2 studies and a minimum of 4,500 subjects, with at least 3,000 exposed to the drug. Additionally, data from the phase 2 venture study supports a less frequent dosing. The company expects to explore a monthly subcutaneous dosing to further improve its competitive profile in a future study and expects to share details closer to trial initiation. Monthly subcutaneous dose is expected to provide additional optionality for patients alongside the current weekly regimens in the market right now. Viking ended the second quarter of 2024 with approximately $942 million in cash on hand, and management noted a phase 3 registrational obesity trial for subcutaneous VK2735 that would cost approximately $300 million. Additionally, management also reiterated a preference for the phase 3 NASH program, VK2809. So what is the most compelling thing so far about the Viking drug? 2 things, mainly tolerability and rate of weight loss, especially for the oral drug. This gives Viking a clear differentiator over the current market competition in terms of not only total weight loss, but frequency of having to take the drug. This lowers costs for patients, as well as potentially could increase adherence to the drug. Here's the tolerability data for Viking's oral drug in a vacuum. As you can see, while the number of subjects is low, only at 37 total, data is still nonetheless stellar in terms of side effect profile and speaks for itself. Here's a side effect profile for the oral drug versus competitors. Clearly better than almost all of them in every category. Now here's the side effect profile for the phase 2 venture study of the subcutaneous drug in relation to Lilly's Mounjaro and Novo Nordisk's Wegovy. While it appears that there's a significant amount of nausea and constipation, as well as vomiting, These symptoms almost completely disappeared by week 4 and were essentially null by week 11, as shown here. Now, let's take a look at the weight loss profile of the Viking drug in the context of competitors. As you can see, it's clearly superior when you factor in and control for duration. In either case, for the oral drug at 28 days and the subcutaneous drug at 13 weeks, we don't see a drop off in the rate of change for the highest dosage. This suggests faster rates of weight loss are possible and with not much side effects. This could really be what sets this drug apart from everything else. Now, with all this being said, which is highly encouraging, where could things go wrong? First of all, we need to see tolerability and effectiveness over a period of greater than a month, probably at least 3 months, for the oral drug. We need significantly more subjects for both drugs. There can be hurdles in terms of funding, although we did just secure $600 million not too long ago. There may be additional capital raises during phase 3 to fund these studies. In the future, even with approval, it may fail to gain support as a third-place GLP candidate if the drug is released too late. Legal battles could also be a possibility. This is also a biotech investment, subject to enormous volatility like we're seeing today on July 29th. There's no news and the stock is down about 10%. If there's some endpoint that doesn't go the way it's expected to go, the stock can sell off 50% or more. And this is not normal, but the FDA could slap a black box warning on it if they think the side effects warrant it. It's not a likely scenario, but still possible.